Well, we're already there. The kids are with us. Where are we going? All the seats are occupied. And why are we in a position to be superheroes? We're not. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming back again to another talk. Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. Excited to bring a new program along and happy to bring on our guest in a few minutes. People tuning in for the first time realize that we turn the tables. Our guest brings us the questions, which they're ready. We're excited to bring on our guest shortly. I want to get into some news. I'm also with Brianna Ludwig. So Brianna is going to introduce herself to you guys in a few minutes as well. We just put out a third letter to the Queens College administration, Queens College, New York. If people go to Foul Ball Safety Now, you're going to see one of the tabs that says Queens College Investigation. We wrote a letter to them in May. We wrote a letter to them in late July. And yesterday we just wrote another letter and we're in early September. We feel like Queens College should be responding to us very soon. This is a situation about a student athlete who called me and shared with us that they're worried about hurting or hitting a kid outside the baseball field. And he said, you can Google Earth Queens College baseball, and you're going to notice an elementary school right next to the field. And what the student athletes are worried about is one of their balls are going to hit the children outside the field. And I said, that's pretty legit. Maybe we can help you. The NCAA needs to follow guidelines and making sure that the students' mental health is adhered to, or making sure that, there's nothing that they're compromising as they're playing their sports. But these guys are dealing with their souls. They are in wrestling with how to proceed and how to play the game because they know it's not a matter of if, but when these close calls will connect with a human being. We're aware of a situation in Modesto, California. People could also go on our Foul Ball Safety Net website and see we had letters out to the newspaper in Modesto over the summer. Please look under Unknown Modesto, and you're going to get a sense of we've been trying to reach out to that community as well. Somebody was outside the field waiting to go in, and if there's 5 or 10 or 15 balls within a 3-hour period that are raining down outside the ballpark, they do land, and they will hit a car window or they'll hit a sidewalk. Unfortunately, in this case, it hit a woman's head, and the lawyer in California found us, and we may have talked to them for 60 or 90 minutes to try to give them some guidance on what they may be able to expect when they had gotten to the court proceedings. And we learned in late July that that case was settled. And I'm glad the woman may get some compensation for her injuries and her pain, but maybe the local community never was told about this incident. Maybe there should have been some notification that if you're outside the ballpark, you need to have some kind of umbrella or some situation or a helmet. It's crazy as it may sound, but it's not unique. There's 169 ballparks other than the professional ballparks. You have the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers and the Giants, but you also have 169 other ballparks, including Modesto. And Queens College is a separate situation. That's college. You have hundreds, if not thousands, of ballparks that may have a situation where balls are leaving the field and coming on the sidewalks or on the side, and unsuspecting people who are outside and don't even know there's a game or practice going on could be hit. There's more examples to share, but I want everyone to go to Foul Ball Safety Now. We also have a new tab up, which identifies we wanted to challenge the sporting baseball card company called Fanatics. Fanatics is a big corporation, and they may have acquired or they have acquired Topps baseball cards. So many people my age remember Topps baseball cards when we collected baseball cards. And Topps baseball cards, I thought, did something really inappropriate. There was a woman who got hit by a 110-mile-an-hour ball. And fortunately, she's okay. She had a big bruise. And what Topps had done was they printed up 110 baseball cards, like signifying or aligning with the idea that, way to go, Liz. Name was Liz. She got hit by a line drive, and she obviously lived. But I thought it was in bad taste because, why are they celebrating the fact that somebody got hurt? So they printed up 110 baseball cards. It was a little bit of a thing last year. but I thought it was worth revisiting. So I put all the notes and letters I put out to the Tops owners and the Fanatic, the guys who run the show over there. So those letters are out there for people to see. Also, letters we wrote to some newspapers and other things. So please take a look at that, Foul Ball Safety Now. That's a new edition. Please check out, I think it says Fanatics Tops. You'll see it. I want to introduce my co-host, Brianna Ludwig. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna. I do communications and research for Foul Ball Safety Now. I've been with the campaign for just over a year now. So I'm excited to introduce our guest today. He is an actor and an amateur kickboxer. His name is Gavin Alton James Bailey. Gavin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys doing today?
Great, Gavin. Great. Sorry I had to give you the whole news, or at least enough of the news to keep people in tuned about what we're doing every week.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. I mean, I love hearing about this. I'm somewhat familiar with the dangers of foul balls myself, but I love learning about your guys' cause and just the depths of it, and I love being here just to listen.
We appreciate having you. So, for the people that are tuning in for the first time, what we do is we turn the tables, and Gavin is ready with questions for us. And we're looking forward to taking on those questions, which we do not know in advance. And we're excited to have a good conversation.
This is a very general question I'm going to start off with, but how common are foul ball injuries in Major League Baseball today?
That's a good question. We don't know because baseball is not required to share their findings, their possession of injury reports with the general public. We just did a little bit of a informal search about a month ago and found a lot of injuries, self-reported injuries, not necessarily media reported. We know of a few studies which implied that this has been a big problem for a long time. There was an NBC study from 2012 to 2019, just how many people may have reported to first aid, probably mostly from baseball related injuries within the ballpark. And it implied that maybe 5,000 people reported to first aid in that period. Now, that may be seven or 800 a year, or six or 700 a year. I don't have my math calculator in front of me. Four teams of the 30, their first aid contractors who work with the team, who may be on standby if anyone gets hurt, or they may show up for 3 hours or 4 hours when the crowds come in and before they leave, they're ready just in case for those reasons. They reported their data, and if you extrapolated the other 26 teams, you would get a sense of just how many people could have been injured, and that number may be 5,000. But then you also have 5 times as many more games in other professional leagues. You have 30 major league teams, which is where this data comes from, but you also have 169 other professional teams. That's 199 teams. There's more teams and leagues than that, but the 199, there's 5 times as many more games played every single year in these other professional leagues than there are in the major leagues. So I can only imagine with less netting and closer intimacy, or if you want to call it that, closer proximity to the field.
Wow, that was a lot higher of a number than I thought it was going to be, especially as an outsider. And I'm a MLB fan. I've been to multiple MLB games. It is crazy to me how you see so many injuries in the MLB with foul balls. When say you're sitting courtside at an NBA game or an NFL game, there's not really many risks that I'm aware of compared to what I'm now hearing about MLB games and foul balls. Do you think the average fan understands the real risks when sitting close to the field like that?
I really don't feel we've ever been properly educated about what happens at the baseball field. I take it year after year, winter months where baseball's had every opportunity to get their act in order and finally be forthcoming about what the families could expect in the spring and the summer. Don't think they've ever been transparent about the reality. They haven't released the data about how many injuries there were every year. And people are coming to the game and not really getting a sense of preparing or having the information beforehand. I think if they had this information beforehand, many of them would have made the decision not to go at all because there's been a lot of proof of major red flags, the 2019 video from ESPN, which we call Exhibit A on the website. It's a 5-minute video, and it demonstrates line drives just past end of dugouts and other injuries being in different parts of the ballpark. Linda Goldblum, who was sitting in the first section up at Dodger Stadium, the low section in 2018, who unfortunately was killed. But clearly, the line drives that are coming at you at these speeds, it's not really humanly possible to defend yourself. And why they would allow you to come sit there, regardless if they tell you on the PA, regardless if there's a sign on the chair in front of you where the cup holder is that says, "Be careful of a foul ball." Well, we're already there. The kids are with us. Where are we going? All the seats are occupied. And why are we in a position to be superheroes? We're not. And most baseball players will attest to the fact that there's no way, no how they're sitting there on their night off with their families because of that. And they have told their own families for years, sit behind the nets because they know the risks. But it creates a dilemma for them because they know that the general public may not be as informed. So that's another conversation as well.
Personally, I mean, this really does make me nervous as an
Uh-huh.
MLB lover. Yeah, that's like unacceptable. It's very unacceptable learning about this and how I've never heard much about this topic at all compared to other sports related safety issues. And it's just it really makes you think and have to worry about things you shouldn't have to worry about when going to enjoy a game, going to stay with your family or friends
Sure.
and want to sit there and just have a good time. And now you're worrying about getting hurt or worse. It just, I know
I'm
it's
sorry to be the bearer of the news, but we want more people to pay attention to what they may have missed throughout their years, so they may actually rethink those good times. Maybe they feel what now they're not associated so much with unconditional good times, and that maybe they were lucky that day they were there that they dodged a kind of bullet, and they feel like maybe it was the day before or after that somebody really got hurt. So they don't want to be part of that equation. But my job is to make sure that people do really realize that there's a lot of truth and reconciliation for those victims needed. And we're going to try to get them that reconciliation.
Yeah, trust me, Gavin, I wish I could bring my son to an MLB game, but just knowing what I know, having worked with this campaign and just becoming intimate with these victims' stories, I just couldn't do that in good faith. It would seem almost immoral for me to do. And I can't really let any of my friends bring their kids without trying to inform them to the best of my ability. I think it is sad that it sort of ruins, the MLB's happy-go-lucky PR campaign that they do, but people deserve to make an informed decision, and the gravity of this issue is very serious. People have died. People have gotten injuries that have altered their state of life forever. It's very traumatic when it happens so sudden like that in an environment that is supposed to be family friendly and fun.
completely. I mean, this is even just being here and listening to this for 15 minutes has just got me emotional because the sport that I love and I love to watch and be a part of that I played in high school, that I am somewhat familiar with the dangers of foul balls, except it's just at a much higher level at the major leagues, is that it seriously is making me reconsider of how close I'm sitting, where I'm sitting. Am I behind proper netting when I go to enjoy my favorite sport?
Yeah. Major League Baseball, some of the upgrades that they publicize, it's an improvement, yes, Gavin, but it's not a solution. We're aware of people that have been concussed and blinded. I spoke to a gentleman who was blinded. His son, I spoke with his son. His father was blinded at a Pirates game in 2023. Where Mrs. Goldblum died in the Loge level in 2018, it was in August of 2018, the end of August, and it wasn't until a year later, around Labor Day, where the nets were raised vertically, and it brings up the question, did any of the other 29 teams do the same? And we are aware that in America, we know of 169 ballparks, and we know some of them have less netting than others. And why is that so? Why would you go 45 minutes down the road to another minor league city and they have extended netting to the foul pole? But even with extended netting further down the lines, it's an improvement, but don't get a false sense of security that you're good to go. We know of at least 30 to 40 cities out of the 169 that still today do not have netting past end of dugouts. And when people see the Exhibit A video from 2019, they would demand that this should have been done 6 years later, and why it hasn't been. Because it's known that if you're sitting there, you're uninformed, because if you had seen the video, you'd be fully informed, and you'd be like, "This isn't once a year, this isn't even once every 10 years, this is could be once a week, maybe even more often, where we're ducking for our lives at these speeds and have no business being there." And there's also one more exhibit, Gavin, because I want you to proceed, called Exhibit A1, which is a 538 report from 2019, same year that the ESPN video came out, Exhibit A, where it shows you, it demonstrates to you just where all these balls go and how often. But what Brendan and I did this year in 2025, earlier in the year, is we took that report and we made some insertions, I guess, or contributions to it. And now people can see just how many foul balls there are per year. You know, we know of the 2,400 games plus at MLB every year, and people don't know there's 14,000 other professional league games every single year. That's 5 times as many more games. If the average game is going through 53 foul balls, and you even just cut it in half to 25 foul balls per game on the other professional levels, 14,000 times 25 is 350,000. And how many of them are really going at warp speed? You know who really knows? Baseball. They've been tracking everything for a decade or two. And I think once the general public learns about this topic, they're going to just demand to know how much mud is on baseball's face.
I mean, I totally understand. I am familiar with MLB's network and all the analytics they run, especially they're keeping track of everything from ball velocity, just all the way down to spin count on the ball. So
Sure.
I'm very familiar with how much detail they take to the game. So it's insane to me they don't take as much detail to safety, which you think would be the number one priority. And it's just, I can't believe it. It's seriously hearing about it right now is making me feel like emotional. And I mean, it's obviously there's not enough media coverage at all discussing foul ball injuries.
You'll
Mhm.
all see Exhibit A1. You know, it's just, this is how
Yes.
many balls are going through a game, and
Mhm.
538 demonstrates on where they go.
I had heard now that you've talked to all these people and just heard all their stories. Is there one in particular that has been the most powerful moment or message you've heard from a fan that affected you personally?
Yeah, probably. I go to this one because I don't know the extent of her long term, but a little girl who we interviewed, 10 or 15 years after her injury, it was more like 10 years. She was about 4 years old at her first game. She was so kind to join us like 6 or 7 times for these virtual press conferences. As a teenager, she was really courageous to go in front of these reporters. People may see a foul ball safety now. We had some major media show up for a few minutes and report about it, but it really hadn't moved the needle. Her story is really powerful because now she's a teenager, maybe 17, and she has some issues and maybe, forgetting things, and she's just not, her 100%. We met her. We also interviewed somebody, another powerful story of a little girl who's now about 30 years old and a mom of 2. I've been working with the journalist by the name of Brendan for 6 years, and we've interviewed more than 70 people, probably around 20 victims and family members, people like the person I just mentioned. And there was another girl who unfortunately was hit at a baseball game. She said she was unconscious for 4 to 5 days, and that was pretty powerful to hear. And so I can imagine what the family must have been going through that. And after she was in the recovery phase, the team reached out and said, "You need to come back. We'll give you all the tickets you want." And the family actually took them up on that offer. And now, as a 30-year-old woman, I think she may be a little upset with her parents for taking the free tickets and maybe not telling the team to take care of the problem. So she may be going through something called, like, I put these 2 words together, gift remorse. We also met another woman who we interviewed who asked the team if she can get married on the field. She wasn't as seriously injured. The little girl who's now 30 is feeling the psychological and the physical effects, so I didn't mean to discount or skip through her story. She was very kind to revisit her experience with us and telling us about her own family getting free tickets so they would go back to games. And she may be a little upset with her parents for not telling the team to take the problem and shove the tickets somewhere else. And then the other woman, she wasn't seriously injured, fortunately. She was part of also our press conferences. And she also told me if she had met me, she wouldn't have asked them to get married on the field. Like the teams are all of a sudden they're like, hey, how can we help you? What do you need from us? And I guess people still romance, want to be close to the game. How about that? We can get married on the field. And they did. So she may be going through gift remorse to some extent. They're all powerful stories, Gavin. We've met two people that have been blinded. My lawyer in New York, her girlfriend was blinded in New York at Shea Stadium years earlier. And Lynn said to me, my friend was blinded in one eye at Shea Stadium. Maybe she'll interview with you guys. Yes, she did. It's a generational effect, Gavin, because her story with us was really just an example of that. None of these families will ever feel whole when it comes to baseball. They don't know how to feel after they're injured. And it's generational effect because she gives us a story about her own 8-year-old playing baseball after she was blinded years later. And maybe she was making the 8-year-old feel nervous because he ended up quitting Little League on his own, and she said she was relieved because she obviously felt some anxiety about the fact that he was playing baseball. And maybe that 8-year-old is now 30 saying to his own child, "Maybe you don't want to play baseball anymore. Look what happened to grandma." These people, there's really no way to baseball to impart closure to these families because there's no genuine gesture available to say to them they're sorry, because if they were, then it won't happen anymore. The person who got seriously injured, they'd rope off that section that day, and the next day it would be like, "Oh, look what we did overnight. We fixed it." I can give you examples of some things that I can show you from June of 2025 of barrels of bats flying into the seats. So there's a lot here, Gavin, and the fact that you and others are willing to go curious with us, we really appreciate that.
Of course, and these stories are heartbreaking. I can see
Yeah.
how
Yep.
powerful they are and why they resonated with you.
I
It's
love the
just
game. Yeah, and I found something that is near and dear to my heart, and I wanna go where this conversation needs to go. Somebody asked me today, "What's the end game?" It's reconciliation for the people that I know, and it's regulation moving forward.
absolutely. And hearing these injuries, they last years, lifetimes even, is just something that needs to be heard about. It should be on front page network. It should be something that's not skipped over, especially with such smaller things in sports getting press over this, which is such a big deal. It's almost like MLB is sweeping it under the rug. It is very shocking to me that I have very little heard about these stories before now.
We're in healthy aggression here, and I'm not a Debbie Downer, or I'm not like going to be, doom and gloom about this matter. I'm going to try to remain positive and optimistic. We have a sense of humor at Fallible Safety Now. I was working with an NYU adjunct, and you were saying, MLB, but there's a lot of also parts of what we call the baseball industrial complex. And the playwright and we put together like this 45-minute bit. Maybe you can interpret it as a play, and it takes on all the layers within the industrial complex. Why aren't the sports writers breaking rank? Why are the baseball broadcasters continually portraying beauty on TV when it clearly is not? The baseball players union, who are former players themselves. What about the young adults that are going through the wrestling with their own conscience about this, like similar to like we're dealing with the Queens College situation? It's very powerful. This young person from Queens College, he's worried if he speaks about the issue, his unborn child in 20 years from now will be blacklisted from baseball. That's what he told me. I said, "Would you like to go on the record? I'd love to talk to you and your team." He says to me, "Jordan, if I spoke with you 20 years from now when I'm a father, my kid won't even be able to play." So I'm going to follow through on this matter. Everyone needs to look at foul ball safety now. Look at the Queens College investigation. My tone in the letters is not singling out Queens College. Could be hundreds, if not thousand, ballparks on all levels where balls are flying outside ballparks, let alone inside. So we finally need to have this conversation. And, that's what we do. And we have a sense of humor, and it's business as usual for us to show up every day, working with Brendan, putting out news. That's what I'm going to help do. And unfortunately, business as usual in Major League Baseball and in all these professional leagues are the dark ages. And Gavin, I do hope we can all say in 10 years, hey, you remember the dark ages back in 2025 when baseball's business as usual was conducted in such a way? And I'd be like, yeah, I was into it for 6 years plus. So that's where it's at, Gavin. We'll continue to do that.
Well, I love to hear that you're taking a lighter note or singing a lighter song and not being all doom and
Yes.
gloom or
Yes.
sad about the issue. I think that is a very helpful way to look at it and go towards
Hey,
it.
we dare anyone else. It's not even a dare. And we're fortunate that you and others are looking to gravitate onto a conversation that you may have not known much about and attach your names or your personalities or your professions to it. So we appreciate your time as well.
Of course, and I appreciate you having me. I mean, this is such a wonderful experience and learning about your guys' cause. And I love the fact that you said that you had a little play or a skit made
Yes.
to help
Yes.
spread the issue. Because as an actor, personally myself, I find such power in the storytelling of a script and just being able to get behind and play a character to further a cause. And that's some of my favorite projects I've worked on have been projects that have a bigger meaning or they're forwarding a bigger something bigger than the film itself, and they have a meaning and they have a purpose. And there's a reason they're making the film, not just to make something fun or to enjoy, but to just help the environment, to help humanity. And I love to hear that. That makes me really happy that you guys did that.
Yes. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. But we think the first draft is in good condition. I know the ending will remain the same, and that's until everyone who's been damaged gets what they deserve, which is some dignity. That's gonna be the ending regardless, whenever we pick up that play. But we do take on all the layers of the industrial complex, baseball industrial complex, and we try to make it funny. People who wanna see the play at some point in time, maybe we'll put it up. I'll speak to the other playwright guy, but it may be time to put that on the website as well and see if anyone wants to nurture, at least read the play for their own information of what we wrote. And maybe they're in the business of producing plays, and who knows?
I just want to say that I share your same vision. I really do hope that in the future, that in 10 years, say, time, that you look back and you say that this is the dark ages of baseball and it's past us now, and that we've made big
Yeah.
moves and we've changed things. And I have a question now for you.
Yes.
How can fans themselves advocate for safer ballparks?
It's, a couple of the guests that came on and who we've met, Brianna and I have felt some passion about getting involved. And I said, that's wonderful. I said, why don't you take a look about what's happening in your local area, about what's happening at your local ballpark, and give me some feedback. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to champion the cause with you. So I think there's so many fields that require personal attention. Again, we don't know the extent of exactly, how much mud on their faces, but we want to go. We want to demand that, because once people realize there's a lot of mud that hasn't been exposed, they're going to say, I want to know. And I'd like to know if my family all those years were sitting in places they shouldn't have. They just want to know. I think once we do that, which you can do in your local ballpark, and you can certainly call upon me for any kind of guidance or encouragement. So I'd be happy to be around for those type of things. But we're just trying to create discussion, and we want people to attach their names to it, like Brianna and I have, and Brendan and others, where just show us what you know, and we will. We're going to show you what we know. That what else can we do? We love the game. INT. We want to integrate integrity into the game. I came up with that. I didn't say INT, but it's integrate integrity into the game. And so now I'm saying INT for the first time. So let's just do it already. And that's where we're at.
Totally, I can see that. And I'm inspired now. I totally do want to go down to my local AAA
Appreciate it.
ballpark and be there and just really see firsthand and just advocate for this cause, 'cause I think it is really important, man. I think it is underreported and
Yeah.
it should be a bigger issue than the press is making it. I love hearing that people are getting excited about it and they do love your cause. And being here now, I totally understand why. It's like a hidden gem that shouldn't be hidden. This is
We will display this on walls for all to see, preferred on Main Street in Cooperstown, New York, where people can walk in thinking one thing about foul balls and leave thinking something totally different. It should be right next door to the Baseball Hall of Fame. It should be right next door on the same block. So it may not be as large as the Baseball Hall of Fame, but certainly you can convert one of those souvenir stores into a small exhibit. And we hope that will be on display. It's part of our history. It's part of the baseball's legacy. We need to put that in front of people. Let them come in thinking one thing and leave with something else. And that's what we have to keep on doing. So there's definitely different ways to put this out there, and we're going to continue to try. It's always great to bring new people and new perspective, and we're happy to hear how you proceed in learning more about what's been happening with you locally.
I was going to ask you,
Yes.
I think a lot of the fans and people listening are going to assume that the biggest safety concern is more netting. And I just had any questions. Are there any new technologies or ideas you think teams should explore besides netting?
Well, yes, for sure. But until three of us spread the word to 12, and until the agencies recognize, maybe they didn't get the memo for the last 55 years and they should have, there's people above our pay grade that clearly would have something to say, but they need to be notified. They should have gotten the memo. There could be the MIT guys who are going to say, okay, I'm looking at MIT, I'm looking at Exhibit A1. I get it. I get a sense, even without baseball sharing all their hidden data, that they don't want to put out there because the mud on their face will be exposed, we can still figure out stuff that we're learning that this clearly is inappropriate. And maybe they'll have something to say about netting or any other things that, knock the baseball down or block it from leaving the ballpark and hitting a woman in the head in Modesto, and obviously having close calls on a regular basis, within a 3-hour period while they're just raining down on the sidewalk and nobody's expecting them. I'm not talking about Wrigley Field or Chicago where there may be 20 people outside with gloves. I'm talking about people outside in these 169 places, Queens College, other places where demonstrates, no sensitivity about, let it ball come up and let it go down anywhere it falls, blah, blah, blah. It's not acceptable. So I'm excited that people are going to be aware, learn more. People should also look at Unknown Modesto because it's unknown. Look at my website and see the tab Unknown Modesto. And unfortunately, for 2 years after that one was struck in the head, we didn't find any announcement about this. Obviously, could have been in other places, but Modesto, the management, the newspaper, we wrote 3 letters to the newspaper in the last 2 months. Not just about that issue, but there was other coincidental situation about lack of netting past end of dugouts. People, please look at the section. You'll see for yourselves. There was another issue that we incorporated in Unknown Modesto, so you'll see that. I don't really know. It's really the 3 of us just continually putting it out there, and people who are smarter than us in certain areas are going to be like, this should have been done years ago. And that's what we're saying. The solutions, people, let's get to them. So that's what I'm looking for. Finally, people will learn about this and we'll hear everyone's 2 cents. And that's exciting.
Of course, I completely agree, and I really do think there needs to be a change. If there's one thing I learned here today is that the baseball industrial complex needs a change, and it's time for one right now. There's no better time than now, and there's no better time to lobby or advocate. It's now, and it needs to happen.
Well said, Gavin.
Gavin, as someone who clearly has a love for the game and, with your experience having played in high school, what do you hope to see change moving forward so that future generations can enjoy the game safely?
I see not only fans being educated about the dangers, but also players who advocate to not play if the standards are not met. If the teams or the leagues, whether that be MLB or not, minor leagues, high schools, little leagues, if they don't comply to these safety rules or regulations, that the game doesn't happen, that people stand up for it and they don't just bow because they want to see a game or they want to have fun, but realize the dangers. And they're not only putting themselves at risk, but other people at risk by not only playing or just being there.
That was well said. And, I would hope, the players would get together. The minor leagues now have a union. They've been even unionized now for a few years. But young adults who grow into, seasoned adults or young adults are unfortunately compromised. They're all on this journey of being Major League Baseball players, and their families are aware of the scenario about the dangers, and most people are not. Most general public are not. We are interviewing baseball players, so we get a sense from the more than 30 that we interviewed. They feel accountable from their own experiences, and I think we're just getting started. And I think once more players learn about what we're doing, they're going to feel like this is a good place to unburden themselves and formally take part. I have something on the website called the Healing Project, so I am ready for the floodgates to open based on my 30 interviews with Brendan, that we have indication that these players do want to unburden themselves. So let's hope this word starts spreading and people are ready to just come on and talk about their own dilemmas from when they were players. And it's a healing matter. It's recognition of their own role, and they're older now, and they could certainly take a look back at their own journey with us. And that's how we got these players to speak with us. They indirectly told us about their own role, about how they were involved, how they may have been directly involved in hurting someone. It's not the one individual, it's the whole system. And I would hope that those individuals that have unfortunately been the ones to hit the ball and hurt someone, that everyone at least rally around them and said it could have been any one of us. I would hope that would be the case, so they're not internalizing all by themselves. I don't know. I don't know how it works with the healthcare and whether they really want to go probing within the teams on how they deal with player and their own anxieties. But we'll get to those. That's a whole nother conversation and an episode worth diving into. And we will. And this was really productive. We can go on again on this topic and continue this on the next time. So thank you, everyone, for coming to Foul Ball Safety Now. Foul Ball Safety Now talks with Brianna Ludwig, Gavin, our guest, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you.